Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Diane's been working with buyers and sellers in the Missoula market for over 25 years. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction and brings us guests who provide useful information on industry-related topics and trends. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO.
Happy Easter weekend. Great to have you here on Missoula Real Estate Today. And this is good. It hasn't been all that long since the last time he was here. Usually there's a lengthy gap. I'm glad I could corral him again. Brent Wahlberg, the numbers guy with Windermere Real Estate. Welcome back to the show, Brent.
Hey, yeah, Danny, good to be here. Good to be here.
Yeah, nice to see you. Yeah. And since we're already into Q2, I guess real quick, what are some of the ups and downs you've experienced so far this year as we got through Q1?
Oh my goodness, yeah. So Diane asked me to come on the show. Of course, we just released our housing report with the Missoula Organization of Realtors, which I chair. Mm-hmm. End of quarter one, it's been interesting. Volume still slow. Median sales price growth is really slowing down as well too, but it's not going negative. So,
right.
You know, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen, but we are seeing a slowing and rapid median growth and an increase in supply. So there's more options. People are, in some cases, not all, in some cases are afforded the ability to take the weekend to think about it, look a second time, negotiate on the list price a little bit. And that's a good, healthy return to the market. So we're kind of seeing those things that are happening, which is nice to see. It's So, but also with more supply, like I've come on here for years, Danny, right, and said we have no supply and is causing this rapid growth in prices because people pay top dollar because it's highly competitive. And so we're seeing at a lot of points now that competition's changing. Some spots it's still red hot. Other spots it's a little cooler, and so it requires sellers to reduce price or it lets buyers get a little bit off the list. So we're seeing it's starting to feel a little bit more normal for whatever a normal Missoula real estate market is. In my almost 24 years in the business, I don't think the market's been the same for 3 years in a row. But so it's not as crazy as it's been the last couple of years for sure.
Well, I would say that explanation, you don't sound real surprised by it, but not necessarily. You've got to be practical, not overly optimistic about it, but at least some positive uptrending there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at this, obviously with the housing market, especially in Missoula and a lot of Montana, it's kind of a double-edged sword because if you're a homeowner, you've probably seen your homeowner, the wealth you have in your house, your equity wealth, more than double in the last 3 years. Wow. It's tremendous. And of course, if you are in there, and of course, if you bought a house in less than the last calendar year, you also have an interest rate probably under 4%. And so you're loving life. You're doing really well. Now, the trick, of course, that happens is on the other side, the buy side, because now interest rates are higher and prices have gone up quite a bit. And so trying to balance that, what the mortgage payment looks like on this side and what the future looks like and how you need to be a lot more careful in this market because, in the last 2 years, it's like, hey, I don't care whatever, I'll pay whatever, just get me in the house and we'll figure out everything from there on out. Now you got to be a lot more pragmatic when you're in the market. You've got to, am I overpaying for this? Do I need, I need to assess a lot more. What can I put into this house to boost its value? How does this payment fit much more differently within my budget? All that stuff. So it's definitely a market we're still seeing a lot of the same frustrations, but where buyers are wanting more options and Missoula needs to grow at a quicker pace, especially when it comes to construction, to add things to buy. We're trying, but so we're a growing community, and it's just kind of one of these things where if you've owned your house though for quite a while, you're doing great. But it's that flip side too. So yeah.
Yeah. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. My guest, Brent Wahlberg with Windermere Real Estate here on News Talk KGVO. Diane and Beck and I were talking about that a few weeks ago, that even though the pendulums may be swinging back a little bit, to your point, you might be sitting on what you think is a potential gold mine in terms of the house you own.
Yeah.
Well, okay, great. I can sell my house. but I'm not going anywhere. So I gotta now I have to go buy another potential gold mine. I mean, there's still that factoring in there too.
There is, yeah. And so this is one of the interesting things that we saw in the housing report this year, where the past couple of years when I come on here, we'd be like, wherever your house is, if it's a $250,000 house or a $1.25 million house,
Yeah.
there's not enough supply. Things are going to go nuts. Well, the market has started to show different activity at different points now. So what we've observed with our housing report is that houses on the market between 300 to 600,000, it's still just a completely wild market that you have nowhere near enough listings to meet the current amount of demand. Of course, our median sales price right now is $520,000. So you're kind of, that 300 to 600, you're kind of right in that the median's the middle of the top middle of that. But so this is the point where the demand is. And we are still, to reach even normal supply of normal activity, Missoula in effect needs hundreds more homes priced between 300 and 600,000. But then if you go over 750, where in previous years supply was short, now it's tipped. And it's not only just normal supply, but it's kind of on the upper end of normal. So what we're seeing is depending on the circumstance of the home, some houses priced 750, million plus, spending time on market. They have to drop their price down. They have to get a little bit more creative with those type of things. And they're not selling overnight or over the weekend or in a couple of weeks even. So the market's now starting to split. So we're seeing some downward pressure on a little bit of the higher price points for what Missoula's used to.
Okay.
But in that sweet spot where the median price is, it is still a wild, wild market.
Yeah, and I think a number that you might have shared the last time you were here, or maybe the time before you were here, either 3K or 4K fourth quarter of 2022. I think that median figure was around 525.
Yeah.
You just mentioned 500. So that is not what you would consider.
520.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, 520, excuse me.
Yeah, you're good.
Not what you would consider a significant drop there, is it?
No, yeah, and that was, I think, Danny, that was the last time I was on. The median was 525.
Yeah.
And we saw for the total on the year end, it slid down to 520. Now, if you look at Q1 median, it's at 525, so it's kind of corrected back. But what we've seen is the spike of interest rates, especially in the fourth quarter, where rates jumped up to 7%,
Yes.
and then they got back down below 6 for a couple weeks, and then in February they climbed all the way back up to 6, and now they're headed back down again. So economists talk about this year is going to kind of be this. It's going to be like a bumpy ride. A slower descent is the expectation. To below 6 by year end is the projection that we hear nationally. But so we definitely have noticed that these, the changes in interest rates, it dramatically changes your payment, and so your ceiling of what you can afford moves down. And so suddenly these houses, and this is, I think, the thing we're starting to see, especially this 758, 900. These sellers are having to lower a little bit of their expectations to meet the buyer revised price payments and things like that.
Any particular reasons jump out at you as to why economists might predict that it will drop some, maybe back in that 6% range, but not exactly a big spike or downturn, and certainly not the percentage numbers we were seeing a year or two ago?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not an economist. I've been in the market long enough where it seems like usually when you follow economic related news, the interest rates can tend to react, or reactionary to that, of course. And so with the Federal Reserve, when they make interest rate hikes, it's not directly tied to mortgage rates, but they have a relationship. And so what we saw was, especially last year, where the Fed was hiking the prime rate 3/4 and 3/4 again.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. Well, this last hike was 1/4. And so what the Fed is trying to broadcast is that their need for a lot of action to curb inflation is cooling. So, and we see inflationary numbers get still high, but I guess somewhat improving. And so it tends to suggest that as inflation starts cooling down a little bit, mortgage interest rates are going to do the same. And so that's usually what we see when we go to like our national real estate conventions and we hear from the chief economist. That's kind of what they tell us to watch for. So, yeah.
I don't have the calendar in front of me, but I do know that we have an economist coming on Missoula Real Estate Today, Dr. Patrick Barkey.
Oh, Pat, he's great. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. He's scheduled sometime in the near future here on this program, so I won't hold your feet to the fire any further on economic forecasting there. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate here on News Talk KGVO. And my guest, Brent Wahlberg, the numbers guy with Windermere. And, of course, we've been talking about home ownership and sales and buying, but let me skip just right now to the rental situation in Missoula. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people who are waiting to be able to buy a house. They've had to compromise and rent, but have you seen any improvement at all on the availability there? I mean, it was just down to a fraction of a percentile of available units.
Yeah. So, from our housing report, the answer to your question currently, Denny, is no.
Yeah.
And I think it surprises Missoulians, and I think I say this probably every time I'm on your show, but within Missoula's city limits, there are more renters than homeowners.
Yes.
It's 52% to 48%.
You do, and I think it's a good reminder. It's a significant statistic.
And so I think that's kind of the thing when people say, wow, look at all these giant apartment complexes that are springing up. It's because more than half of our growing population needs those. Because that's the availability that they have. So what we reported at year end was that vacancy rate, units vacant across all of Missoula, was at 1.2%. So it slightly improved because I think we were below 1%.
Yeah.
But a healthy market is over 5 or 6% of vacancy rate. And so still what you see, and again, you can relate this to real estate sales as well too, limited options on rental, higher rates on rent. And so that's what they reported as well too, where rent rates went up another 11% this year. So, and that's, I think it surprises people to see what, a average one bed apartment, I think is, $950 or $1,000 a month right now. And it bowls people over because for some people that's their mortgage payment. Mm-hmm. And it's, again, some of it is related to availability. And so it does, our property manager, as part of the housing report, did say that with the amount of construction going on, because we'd also report the last 2-year multifamily apartment building permits were through the roof, and we're seeing the effect of that with all the building going on around town. They do expect a little bit more of a flood of the market this year that should boost vacancy rates. But I've seen people project, that's going to cause rents to go down. We'll have to see. Again, like I said, 23 and a half years into the business so far, I have seen times in Missoula, we've all seen this in past years, where a whole bunch of apartments buildings spring up.
Yeah.
And rents didn't really go down. So we'll have to see. Everything's different. Who knows? But I'm not really holding my breath for a great rent correction in Missoula.
Well, another thing I would assume to consider, Brent Wahlberg with Windermere Real Estate is my guest this week on Missoula Real Estate Today, by the way, presented by Diane Beck at Windermere Real Estate on KGVO. And I don't want to be the pessimistic guy here, but more rental units being built, or at least their works in progress, but that's oftentimes where supply chain issues are still a factor. How are we doing there?
Oh, it's the same. I mean, when it comes to supply chain, some things have improved. If you talk to builders or if you kind of survey what's going on around town, pricing and related to supply chain, some materials are better. Lumber is kind of better, but it's turning into skilled labor is the challenge that we're seeing. Okay. And so sometimes, and certain types of materials as well too, that can tend to be delayed. I mean, we still see things, as goofy as it is, we hear quite a bit that if you're building a house right now or apartment complex or something, you better order your appliances like as soon as they dig the hole, and don't roll into, one of the home supply stores here expecting to get your appliance package a couple of months before you close, because you won't have anything.
Yeah.
So, and again, that comes down to the technology and the microchips and the panels inside of them and things like that. But then what we also see is people just there's need for framers, electricians, plumbers, roofers, that kind of stuff
sure.
like that as well too. So that's an ongoing thing. It's probably just it's a Montana thing. I mean, we've seen that quite a bit. I don't know if that's going to like fully vest itself, but as some of these large scale apartment buildings slow or get finished, it'll be interesting to see if a lot of the people that have been working on those, if they clear out or if they move into home building or what they do. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, and it's amazing how many big ones are under construction. Do you get an opportunity to kind of I don't know, not necessarily take a tour, but kind of look at floor plans or get a feel for exactly, what is the most common business model in terms of size and features and those kinds of things? Do you ever get that opportunity?
Gosh, I don't.
Yeah.
So we see some reports, and so what we see, and I think we have it in our housing report, but I think the most common unit is about 1,000 square foot, 2-bed, 1-bath.
Pretty small.
Yeah. So that tends to be the most frequent.
Yeah.
A 2-bed or a 3-bed, 2-bath or something, but nothing, and that's like 1,200 square feet. So, and that's apartments. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, as a realtor, I'm sure you keep an eye on potential developments of housing developments,
Yeah.
I should say. Any big news there in terms of, and I'll I guess a two-part question. One, a lot of times it's going to be those kinds of developments. The goal is affordable housing. So
Yeah.
I'll ask you: are there any developments on the horizon, and what is a definition of affordability or affordable housing?
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, if I may.
Well, so in terms of housing developments, as we'd reported in the housing report, I think one new subdivision and a couple of small things going on. But it's in Montana, and especially that we see here in Missoula, when you talk about new subdivisions, they're a little rare, and they take a long time, is the other thing as well. And they take millions of dollars to get off the ground before you even have a product you can sell. So what we do see are things where a full subdivision is approved, but it's approved in phases. And so I live in 44 Ranch, which is out Mullen Road.
Right.
And 44 Ranch has 20 phases, but each phase is like 20 to 30 lots. And so it's a subdivision that was approved, I want to say almost 20 years ago. But what we're having is you get a phase that pops up in a phase. I mean, and so the funny thing is you look at it's called Stone Mountain, right? It used to be called Mansion Heights way up. That was a subdivision that was approved in the 80s. You get the Canyon River Golf Course out in East Missoula. That was a subdivision that was approved in the 90s, but they're just doing their phases now. So it's kind of weird to track this because, a new subdivision, a new phase of a subdivision can pop up that was approved 40 years ago. So in that perspective, we're seeing a lot of growth on the Mullen corridor.
Sure.
And we're seeing a lot of expansion on the south end of town. I think a lot of developers are waiting to see what happens in Helena with a lot of legislative process, because there are a lot of proposed bills to allow people to add accessory dwelling units, a second living unit on your existing property, regardless of zoning. Not yet passed, but it seems to have a lot of popularity. And then also other laws that aren't yet passed but in discussion that would allow duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes on what traditionally was deemed like a single family, a single unit lot. So I think we're going to have a lot of people looking to what type of to return to the middle core of town, and if there might be some growth opportunities there. But again, that's a really small scale. So, on the development side, I think kind of what you see going on in the expected areas where there is that opportunity to do so, we're seeing it. Elsewhere, not so much. So your second question, Denny, how do we define affordability? So with our housing report with the realtors, what we talk about is affordable housing is less than 30% of your monthly income.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So that is effectively, and that's a federal guideline that's used by the housing authority. So this isn't something we just kind of grabbed out of thin air. And so whenever you hear talk about affordable, what a lot of people will do is look at the area median income, which in Missoula last year was $80,000 for household income, split that by 12, and then take 30% of that, and that or less is considered a household expense that is deemed affordable. And so when you see affordable housing, that's what that is. The trick is right now, and this was in our housing affordability index that we had, it was our lowest of all points because of the rise in interest rates and the ongoing rise of median sales prices. It has made payments on housing tremendously higher. And so in terms of affordability options for Missoula, especially on the purchasing side, 2022 was about as tough as it gets.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate, and my guest is Brent Wahlberg, also of Windermere Real Estate, here on News Talk KGVO. Thank you to Diane's marketing partners that help bring you the program every week. Miles Link at Opportunity Bank of Montana, Rob Fleming with Mann Mortgage, back to Brent Wahlberg and the Wahlberg team.
That's right.
At Windermere. I'll let you get a plug in here, Brent, for the Wahlberg team.
Yeah. Well, my team, it's me. I've been working in real estate since 1999 here in Missoula. I think a lot of people recognize my mom's name, Judy Wahlberg. She practiced from 1978 until about 2 years ago. And then my wife, Courtney, works with me, and my sister, Christina, works with me too. So it's the three of us, and we're down the hall from Diane, and been at Windermere since 2011. Before that, we're with a different franchise company my mom owned and operated from 1995 to 2011. So yeah, it's I don't know, it's interjecting our family and part of what we do with our business and our practice and everything. I think family dinners probably bother my brother-in-law, my sister's husband, and my dad a little bit because the three of us are talking real estate the whole time still, but I think they've gotten a little used to it. So, yeah.
I want to get back to the affordability numbers. I think I got everything in my head, but just kind of to use an example here. You quoted a figure of $80,000, the annual household income in the Missoula area. And so I guess that breaks down to what? Somewhere around, let's say, $6,600 a month, roughly.
Yep.
And you're saying affordable is defined by affordable housing defined by 30% of that, which would make your house payment
$2,000
around $2,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think most people find that realistic?
Well, that's the trick. Is right now, I mean, a mortgage. If you have a 5% down on a $400,000 house, your mortgage is going to be close to $3,000.
Yeah.
At today's interest rates, and $400,000 is 120 below our median sales price right now. So that's the big challenge. And so in our affordability index, we always look at this median price. And this accounts also for property taxes, insurance, like all the influencing factors of home ownership in Missoula. And so what we saw was that the income needed, if you have a 5% down payment, to basically be considered to hit that affordability threshold of the 30%, a home buyer would need to make $160,000 a year, double.
Yeah.
At 20% down, it's $133,000 a year. So it's a tremendous challenge. And of course, house payments, and I know Diane has mortgage brokers on here as well too, because your debt to income, not a lot of people, their only debt is going to be their house payment. You have credit card, you have student loans, you've got car payments, you name it. And so there's a lot of these factors that weigh into it as well too, that makes things challenging. And the rise in interest rates was probably the biggest factor that we've seen that really hit it quick. Of course, now what we're seeing, though, is the market is responding with slowing of median price gains. But this is the interesting thing, I'm kind of dovetailing here, but in Missoula, with our median sales price of $520, and we kind of spanned out across the state, and we said, okay, is everyone else seeing the same thing happening with these rise of interest rates? Is their price gains going down? Hamilton, yes. Helena, yes. Bozeman, Billings, yes. Kalispell, absolutely not. Kalispell,
higher than Missoula now.
Kalispell's median is $580,000 and still climbing. And the Kalispell market is bucking all the trends. They saw their largest price gain this last year, where everyone else started cooling down, slowing down. Kalispell said, forget you guys, we're going to keep going. So the Kalispell market, you span across the state, and you can pinpoint specific areas. Like the whitefish market median sales price is $830,000, right? Because it's whitefish. Bozeman, you got to pull things apart because you have the influence of the resort area, but like the Bozeman median is 630, and the Missoula median is 520. Helena is more in the fours. What are they, 450 or so? I don't know Billings off the top of my head. I think they're upper fours. But so Kalispell, in terms of the major kind of metro areas in Montana, is now the I wouldn't consider whitefish a major metro, but so Kalispell is like the second most expensive, which is wild. And last year's data showed it wasn't cooling down.
Yeah.
So
many numbers. So many numbers. So I would I'll give you a plug for your biz and for the Wahlberg team. But I think at this point it's worth mentioning reviewing the advantages that you can offer as a local agent as far as accessing prices in multiple listing services.
Yeah. Well, that's, people like Diane and myself, like we not only do we bring years of experience, an awesome franchise, and great expertise to navigating all types of markets, but we come with this type of research and knowledge to the market. Our realtor population is a great population of wonderful agents out there. It has more than doubled in the last couple of years, but there's not a lot of people like my team and like Diane's team that can bring all this type of knowledge to the table to help people as they buy and sell in this market.
Brent Wahlberg with Windermere Real Estate here on Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. I know you're not an economist, and I know you're not a psychic, but I ask these kinds of questions anyway. If you were to kind of paint a picture of maybe the rosiest outlook or some of the highlight points of optimistic things that you would hopefully anticipate for the back three quarters of 2023.
Yeah. This is what I've seen, and this is, I'm going to get all the way off numbers. I'm just going to talk anecdotally with the people I'm working with right now. What we saw quite a bit in the last 3 years was Missoulians, people that owned houses that wanted to upsize, downsize, move across town, do whatever, couldn't compete.
No.
Now you can. And so a lot of the business I'm working with are people that are saying, hey, finally, I'm ready to make this move. I'm ready to list. I'm ready to go somewhere else. And sellers are looking at offers contingent on their home selling. The health of the market, especially in these key price points, is really strong. And so people are able to list, get a good price, move, maybe negotiate a bit, and kind of make it a win-win situation. So what I really foresee the rest of this year, and probably spilling into the next year, and as interest rates continue to improve, our homeowners have made great equity gains in their houses. They're going to be able to move it into a new property, and they're not going to be competing with 20, 30, 40 out-of-state all-cash offers. And so it's kind of, again, like we opened with this, kind of returning to a normal, healthy market, and it's going to be something where people can now make cross-town, local, regional moves. Yeah. And I think it's going to be a great thing for a lot of people.
And therefore, as Diane Beck pointed out, and I'm sure you will too, no such thing as being too prepared in terms of pre-qualifying. And in fact, I think Diane made the point that if you're not pre-qualified, we're probably not in a position to go to work for you until you are.
Getting pre-qualified at this point, and you can always update it. It never hurts to have that done. And if you're looking to make this crosstown move, the other thing you should do as well too is get a valuation on your house right now, even if you're not thinking about selling. Mm-hmm. Through our Windermere franchise, we've got tools to give quick and immediate market updates, and we can keep those refreshed. It doesn't take a ton of time, but it allows you to keep your thumb on the pulse of what your home is worth, so you know what your down payment is going to the next place, too.
Brent Wahlberg with the Wahlberg team at Windermere Real Estate, this week's guest on Missoula Real Estate Today. Any parting information? If we want to get a hold of you, what's the easiest way to go about that, Brent?
Well, you can find me at the Windermere offices. Our number there is 406-541-6550, or WahlbergTeam.com is where you can find my family team.
Very good. Great job as always, and nice to see you again, man.
Good seeing you too.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Email DianeBeck@windermere.com or For a complete directory of Diane's listings, visit move2missoula.com. That's move, the number 2, Missoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.